In this video, Celia and I will provide 6 tips on proper squat technique, perfect for both beginners and more experienced lifters. By watching and practicing all these 6 steps, we promise you will master this excellent exercise in no time. Squats are considered one of the most essential exercises in strength training and strengthen the front of the thigh, the back of the thigh, the glutes, and also the core muscles. We will not go into detail on specific muscles use in this video, as we will focus on proper technique today. Still, we have another video where we dive deeply into anatomy and biomechanics. We'll leave the link to that video in the description below, so check that one out to learn more, also about the tips on targeting specific muscles during your squat exercise. Despite the apparent value of including squats as part of your training program, many people hesitate to do this exercise due to uncertainty of how it's appropriately executed. The risk of injuries is also essential to consider when doing squats. The load on your spine exposes the lower back to injuries, so you must take time to practice good technique before loading up. Okay, let's start by looking at what characterizes good technique in the squat exercise. Start off with placing the barbell in a solid rack at chest height. It would help if you don't place the bar too high. Even if you manage to lift the bar to start with, it's also determined that you will be able to put it back again when you're exhausted. Get under the bar and place the barbell below the cervical vertebrae that sticks out notably from the others. This vertebrae is called cervical 7 or C7. Press your shoulders well back and let the bar rest on the upper part of your shoulder muscles. The goal is to avoid the bar resting on the bones, which can cause some discomfort during the lift. Activate your abdominal and back muscles, lift the bar off and take 2 steps back in a controlled manner. As a starting point, we recommend standing at shoulder width distance. Some prefer a wide stance to get the upper body more upright. This is called wide squats. The toes can point slightly outwards, but be careful not to overdo the angle of the legs. You're now ready to start the actual movement of the squat. Okay, start by bending the knee and the hip joints until the thighs are parallel to the floor and press the bar back to the starting position. These 2 phases are called eccentric and concentric phase, and it's actually referring to the ways the muscles are contracting. Concentric contraction occurs when the total length of the muscle shortens as tension is produced. Here, the upward phase of the squat is concentric contraction, and the downward phase of the squat is the eccentric phase, where the length of the muscle increases as tension is produced. It might look simple, but you should keep a few things in mind. We'll now go through the 6-step checklist, so pay attention. Okay, point number 1, pointed knees. Many tend to push their knees forward and stand with almost a vertical back in a deep position. The consequence is that the person is standing on the toes unbalanced, which can be due to reduced mobility in the ankle joint, or the coordination between the knee and the hip joints is not ingrained. In other words, poor technique. You can fix this by visualizing how you'd sit down on a low bench. You can move your seat back while your upper body bends forward. Okay, point number 2, horizontal back. You may have heard that you should stand with your whole foot in contact with the ground throughout the lift. Some end up with almost a horizontal back. This can be due to reduced mobility in the ankle joint, or that the upper body is short in relation to the leg length. Try placing 2 to 3 centimeter high block underneath the heels to correct this. This adjustment causes the leg to be angled forward and the back to be bent vertically. But in the long term, you should prioritize working on mobility rather than building up the heel area. Okay, before we move on to number 3, we'll kindly ask that if you find this video helpful, we'd really appreciate if you could give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comments below. Thanks a lot. All right, let's dive into number 3. Train with a natural straight back. You should strive to train squats with a natural straight back to reduce the risk of injury. Nevertheless, many lift with a rounded back. Now, the reason why some train squats with a rounded back can be multiple. Some have not got told that they were actually lifting with a rounded back. Second, some cannot activate the back extensions to keep the back straight and also get tired quickly when training. Third, some have reduced mobility in the hip joint because the mobility of the hamstrings and glutes is diminished. Let's now look at some measures that can help improve this. Keep the elbows high in front of your body when training front squats. If your elbows fall down, it's easy to round your back, while the back extensions are forced to straighten the spine when you press your arms up. Press your elbows forward when training squats with the bar on the shoulders. As an alternative, you can also train squats with the bar overhead, but I'd recommend maybe this is reserved for the advanced, for those who have got a good experience with the exercise. All right, number 4, knees over toes. The knees should always point in the same direction as the toes to distribute the force over the largest possible area in the knee joint. Often we see that the knees being pressed against each other. The most important thing is to be aware that the knees should point in the same direction as the toes. Watching yourself train squats in a mirror are also another short-term measure. Okay, number 5, hyperextension. With hyperextension, we mean that the back is not held naturally straight in the transition between the eccentric and the concentric phase that follows the forces applied in the braking phase. The easiest way to correct this is to actively work on the technique and also to perform the eccentric phase calmly and controlled. Number 6, different force on both legs. People who have had an injury, for example, in one leg, may unconsciously unload the injured leg during the recovery period. This habit can be carried forward even when the injury is healed, leading to uneven loading and also poor technique execution. To avoid this, you can focus on keeping the pelvis horizontal and that the force should be evenly distributed between both legs. It's also wise to prioritize single leg exercises, supplement other exercises to ensure optimal training on both legs. You can start training with increasingly heavier resistance when you know that you've mastered all the elements that characterize good technique. However, remember that it's also wise to have someone quality assure your lifts, as it's often difficult to see everything yourself. Okay, to summarize, here are the most essential points that you should look for. Number 1, pointed knees. Number 2, horizontal back. Number 3, train with a natural straight back. Number 4, knees over toes. And number 5, hyperextension in the bottom phase. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe and also ping that notification bell so that you don't miss any of our other videos coming up. Also, if you want to dive deeper into the wonderful squat, check this video right here to learn more about how to get the most out of your squat training.